Be live right now. Thank you for waiting for us. We had some technical difficulties with the presentation that Dr. Valentine is presenting today. So we had to fix it for the family. He could have just talked, but we wanted to give you some slides so it could really sink into your subconscious. I want to welcome you all to the first episode of Metaphysical Gems featuring Dr. Phil Valentine. This will be a monthly series that Doc is having on the Patreon channel. And if you like this, which you will, this is for advanced metaphysical students. This isn't just your regular YouTube show. This is a show that is really for those who are interested in building up their temple and going with these and going within and turning on that light that resides within you. So I want y'all to really, really, really not just watch this, but really take notes, take this serious. The brother, this is actually sponsored by the brother's university. He will let you know about his university. His university is popping out here. I mean, it's amazing. So he'll talk about that later on. But for now, let's get started. Dr. Valentine, welcome to the first episode of Metaphysical Gems. Welcome to my Patreon channel, brother. Go ahead, my brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good to be here. Um, I first want to say thank you for the ability to address the family.
Mhm.
And I'm first of all, I just want to let you know that most likely won't be doing every one of our series with a presentation. I may every now and then, based on the subject, give a short PowerPoint presentation. Otherwise, I'll just be open to questions that you may have on the particular subject that we will be covering over a period of time. So I wanted your maiden voyage uh, into this particular realm of study to be one that is impactful for the family. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to skip 2 degrees, and I'm doing this because you told me that the people who will be viewing this are on a higher level of metaphysics. So I've gone all the way to the 3rd degree in the metaphysical psychology course, just to give a touch of where it is you would most likely end up. Some of the words, some of the ideas, some of the systems that we'll be studying, this particular system of the sacred geometry, which is the course itself. Some of them will be a little bit above the head, but as I was told, that the people here are of that caliber to be able to process what is going to be spoken about. Again, this is just superficial. I can't and pretty much won't give everything that I normally would give to my students who essentially have a particular tuition, and our classes go on for like 3 hours, 4 hours. So this is to give you an idea of what metaphysics is about on the highest degree. Know that the people who do start at our university start at the initiate level. They progress to what is known as the ascension level, and from the ascension to the perfection level. These are the 3 levels that were called the path of the hidden light in the ancient Kemet. That's what you studied. You studied the doctrine of the hidden light. And these were the high temples of Kush, the high temples of Kemet, and the high temples of the Mohenjo-Daro uh, civilization, of what we call the Indus Valley civilization. So, just to keep it legal and proper, I want to put down our sovereign confidentiality notice for this particular broadcast. So, excuse me. Without further ado, I read this into the records. This private lesson, including all words, intellectual concepts, contracts, and precepts in both audio and visual forms, are limited to the sole use of myself, Dr. Philip Valentine, with extended permission for use by Doctor, I'm going to call you Doctor, Brother only, and the participants of his private broadcast. And it contains privileged, proprietary, and/or confidential information that is not for resale, display, or representation by anyone but myself and Brother Rich. Any and all political, private, or public entities, federal, state, or local corporate governments, municipalities, international organizations, corporations, agents, investigators, or informants, et al., and or third parties working in collusion with above agencies to collect information by monitoring the cyber classes held here at the University of Commission Sciences and or any other means of electronic spying and collecting class content without our exclusive permission are barred from any and all unauthorized review, use, disclosure, or distribution. All images utilized in this cyber class are displayed in accordance with Title 17 U.S. Code Chapter 1, subsection 107 of the U.S. Copyright Law, notwithstanding provisions set forth in Title 17 U.S. Code, subsection 106 and subsection 106A, with explicit reservation of all my rights, without prejudice and without recourse to me, Dr. Philip Valentine, the University of Commission Sciences. Any omission does not constitute a waiver of any and or all intellectual property rights or reserved rights. Notice to principal is notice to agent, and notice to agent is notice to principal. Brother Rich, can you left click once, please, so we can go forward to the next? So now, what I'm going to do is to introduce you to one of the higher degrees, just one of the classes that I give just as a portion. Like I said, our classes are usually sometimes 3 to 4 hours long. But what you're going to get is a taste of the upper degrees. In this particular case, I'll be studying and understanding the fundamental algorithms of time, space, and corporeal being through sacred geometry. Brother Rich, once more, click. Now, the following excerpts are extrapolated from my next book, Cosmic Codex Book of the Earth, Understanding the Metaphysical Velocities of Being, the macrocosmic ontology of the God man of plain earth, and the science of corporeal transcendence, that is, bridging the historic and the metahistoric. Now, a lot of people were asking me, is your book real? Because you've been talking about this particular book for the last 20 years. Well, it is very much real. I stopped the book to finish The Wounded Womb, because I found that book 4 of that particular series, my series, essentially was more important at the time because our sisters were suffering. So The Wounded Womb, book 4, was completed before book 1. Just to give you an idea, just go to the next one, please, Brother Rich. Yes, this is the page, the one of the front pages of Cosmic Codex Book of the Earth. And of course, you see at the top, it's part book 1, which is the definitive guide to the physical, mental, and spiritual resurrection of melanated beings in the cosmic diaspora. This is called the Regenesis Chronicles, Book 1, Cosmic Codex Book of the Earth. And of course, you see that, yes, it is being propped and primed. It should take another 2 years to complete, but I will let you know. This is backdated to October 1985 by the Temple of the Healing Spirit. This is how old and long I have been putting into this book. It's going to be over 1,000 pages.
Wow.
Let's go to the next, please. Now, I took a part of the book so that you could see it because it is extensive in its breakdown and deliberation of what the subject matters are. So I chose one of the subject matters of God as sacred geometry, which is a component part of what we do, what I have done. So I'm going to read it to you and into the record. So just in case you do not have a video or the pictures up that you can hear the audio, I will speak to it for you. Now, this part of or this section of chapter 1 speaks to the Great Period. So the Great Period itself should be considered a celestial codex in stone, in that it is the representative word of God manifested through symbolic language of geometry. The arcane phrase God geometrizes holds the profoundest clues to the secrets of creation, and the Great Pyramid represents an entire library of points, lines, angles, and signs that cryptically engender these divine secrets. The language of geometry so closely approximates and articulates the physical presence of God in matter that it is perhaps the most sacred and precise science of calculation, whereby the realm of chaos is transmuted into the Ma'atian spheres of divine order. Geometry is the fundamental symbolic language by which a seeker may unveil and articulate all conceivable complexities of existence. It is the fundamental calculus within all laws of creation, a divine language of organization and structure that is obeyed by those imperceptible forces of nature that we call the elementals, a language where mythical entities called angels, who are actually the angles that confine these elementals to their parameters of purpose, which the laws of geometry invariably impose upon them. It is a language whereby the divine forces of intention manifest themselves according to complete parabolic parameters, that is, point as focus, line as directrix, point as focus, line as directrix, which are inherent in immutable law. Geometry is also the Medunetra, or the divine language of God and nature, secretly whispered by this great monolithic book of the earth, that being the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is seen symbolically depicted in Freemasonry through their use of Greek alphabets that present the word God as Gamma, Omicron, Delta. And you see where the word God in the secret societies came from. Geometry was one of the most secret and fundamental languages taught in the ancient mystery schools. The initiate learned that if he or she could not envision their own purpose through a mind framed with geometric and mathematical perspectives of life, whatever thoughts they envisioned to create or effect as a phenomenon would manifest incomplete. On page 111 of her work, The Secret Doctrine, Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, co founder of the Theosophy Society, writes: every cosmogony, from the earliest to the latest, is based upon, interlinked with, and most closely related to numerals and geometrical figures. End quote. Although the word geometry is said to have been taken from the Greek word Gaia, meaning land or earth, and metric, meaning to measure, as well as gnosis, meaning esoteric language or knowledge, its current enunciation and intonation appear to have been derived from the more ancient Kemetic word for the neter or god called Jehuti, geometry, also called Thoth by the Greeks and Hermes by the Romans, both deifying him as the creator of astronomy, astrology, the science of numbers, mathematics, geometry, land surveying, medicine, botany, theology, the alphabet, reading, writing, and oratory. Could that be a coincidence? They have mutilated our language, changed it, like the word alchemy. Alchemy was named after Chem. All of the words that they use for the higher sciences are somehow derived from the words that our ancestors used. Geometry is also considered the fraternal twin of mathematics, what I call or term Ma'at Hermetics. Mathematics is Ma'at Hermetics, that is, the secret laws of number and their operational dynamics within the ordering of manifested being. Even the Christian Bible states, teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Psalms 90 and 12. We will eventually delve into the fascinating logistics operating between the Great Pyramid and the celestial geometries of the cosmos further on in the body of this work. Now, orthodox science versus metaphysical insight. Let those seeking the path, that is, the higher path to wisdom, understand that the mind of man, that is, Mem Alph Nun, is a divine mechanism functioning on dual planes of existence, the material and the metaphysical. Material perception anchors man in the illusory world of effects through the operation of the senses, while the metaphysical insight gives him or her access to the invisible realms of cause. Orthodox science merely flirts with the invisible realms, causal realms, and being restricted to protocols that govern the fragmentation and codification of effects. It confines itself to a language system that appeals more directly to the well indoctrinated material intellect. The schematics and verbiage of Orthodox science are vast in number and made readily available to the populace by way of the education system, with technologies created to enhance the physical senses in order to better inventory the fractal realities of their material based world. On the other hand, metaphysical insight is not so easily grasped or efficiently expressed through modern modes of Western language syntax and education, and must therefore be articulated through a parabolic dialect of allegory, metaphor, and analogy. Very few of the ancient languages allow for the instant illumination and understanding of the quintessential nature of things, which is why the languages of geometry and mathematics are said to transcend all barriers to fundamental understanding and understanding. Attempting to convey a conceptualization of the eternal verities to an uninitiated mind using the jargon of metaphysical formulae would be as futile as attempting to nail the ethers to a drywall. Where orthodox science is trapped by the formalities of institutionalized protocols which govern the vectors of its limited perceptions and purpose, metaphysics freely explores the intrinsic essentialness and intentions of the ineffable mind that constitute the invisible multiplicities of the I am that I am permeating throughout the holographic membranes of all existence. Now I'm going to go up to just this point here, a brief codification or clarification of the word metaphysics. This man, Johann Holzinger, in his book Autumn of the Middle Ages, says culture must have its ultimate aim in the metaphysical, or it will cease to be a culture. End quote. The formal definition of the term metaphysics, according to the American Heritage Dictionary, is, quote, a branch of philosophy that systematically investigates the nature of first principles and the problems of ultimate reality, including the study of being or ontology and the study of the structure of the universe, cosmology, as you saw in my previous in the subtext or the sub heading of my book. Now, I won't go any further because the scholastic lens through which the principles of metaphysics are studied in relationship to perception of the human mind is called metapsychology. And of course, we have to get the book to find the rest of it. That's just a piece of what you're going to get once it's finished. This will definitely tease your mind. Let's go to the next, please. Meanwhile, I will focus directly on what it is my beloved brother has asked me to focus on, even though it will be a visceral kind of touch to this particular subject. I don't want to overburden you because usually, as I said, my classes are 3 and 4 hours long. But there are 13 fundamental sigils of sacred geometry, and I've kind of codified them into these amounts here. The flower of, or what I call the flower blossom of life, or what they call the flower of life, but I call it the flower blossom of life, the Om Yantra, the cube of Metatron, the seed of the flower of life, the hexadron of elemental or platonic, the hexahedron of the elemental or platonic solids, the tetrahedron of fire, the isosahedron of water, the octahedron of air, the dodecahedron of spirit and universal purification, the interlaced knot of eternal being, the interlaced triangles of conscious corporeal being, the hamsa of prosperity, health, and happiness, and the torus of the eternal balance of spirit and matter. Now, these are what I've kind of put down for you to do as homework, because you could take each of these categories and go to search to see exactly what the geometric pattern for each of these are represented as by the ancient peoples. And of course, the Europeans have taken a lot of these sciences because, while you've stolen most of the cultures of everyone else and put them into a state of privation, hunger, poverty, and destitution, you have the ability to rifle through the records and get a few people that you would then feed, treat a little better than the rest of them, and have them translate for you, which is essentially what happened and how all of Christianity was born out of the madness and all of the greatest sciences, or what I call the theological and astrotheological sciences. So here you have uh, at least 13 different categories to search, and what they would be, what the meaning of each of them would be as you apply them in your daily life. Okay, go to the next, please, Brother Rich. I want you to get to know this gentleman here. I know it might be a little dark to see, but this is Mahamuni Mahayan, and he was the Dakshinamurti, or the teacher. Okay, now I want you to notice that the brother had serious locks. When Shiva, the god Shiva, is portrayed with dreadlock hair, it is always a depiction of Mahamuni Mahayan. Now, who was Mahamuni Mahayan? Please go to the next, Brother Rich. They called him the God Man. He was the Imhotep of the Cushitic, the Indus Kush peoples. Okay? Because you remember, Kush gave birth to Kemet as well as the Indus Valley civilization. Most people are not aware of that. The Kushadweepas are all resonating outshoots from ancient Kush. Now, the god man Mahamuni Mahayan wrote, "There exists an order in the universe. There is a subtle universe and a material universe. This power is attributed to the consciousness of the cosmic space, as well as to the consciousness of the inner space of animate beings. This consciousness, by its personal effort to express its own inner feelings, causes a kind of vibration or pulsation in the inner spaces of animate beings, resulting in their auric energy grids. The vibration or pulsation, being the causal element of all these events, is called Ka'Allah." Okay? Sound familiar? Yeah. A lot of the words and pronunciations, when it has to do with God, have dovetailed from a lot of the ancient Hindu peoples and ancient Chem. There's nothing new under the sun. This European couldn't find anything new spiritually if he tried. He had to pimp and take and steal, rob, pillage to get the information. Now you have to remember again, as I'm saying, this man was the Imhotep of ancient Dravidian civilization. And what he is speaking about is the fact that there is a consciousness in the inner space of animate beings. That consciousness is God as a spark. And as I've always said, and you've heard me say, that we are avatars, simply carrying the spark of the One Most High, and the One Most High taking us on as a material suit of the flesh in order to participate in the sensation of itself. This is actually the force of energy aroused by the inner consciousness, causing waves and contributing to the growth of all living forms. This Ka'Allah resides in all living beings. Space is the offshoot of the vibration of primordial energy. This is how space is born. All forms in nature are manifest forms of subtle energy. For all to get manifested, the force of Ka'alam, Alam, Ka'alam. The force is Ka'alam. This wave force frequency realm is the creative element of the universe. Let's go to the next, please. Now, I give honor and praise to this gentleman. His name is Dr. V. Ganapati Srabati, and he is the resurrector of the ancient Indus Kush high science called Vastu and Vaastu, the 10,000-year-old science founded by the Dravidian Imhotep named Mahamuni Mahayan, or Mamuni Mayan. It is also called the Vaastu Shastra. Today, it is called the Mayonic Sciences. Grandmaster Ganapati said this science deals with the eternal process of subtle energy manifesting into material space or material forms. And that's exactly what we're talking about. The fact that all things take on form by following geometric patterns set up by the projected image of intention. It is divine intention that projects itself into the medium where creation of its own intention takes shape. And that's what we call third density or third dimension. Everybody lives under a density, under a structured density that we call third density. That's where we are at this time. We are under about 15,000 pounds per square inch of water, but in this case, what we are breathing is water from a different density. Water takes on a different density to house a different form of life that we call the marina or mariners or the marine animals. Ma being the principle of Mari, which is feminine, which is the mother, which is the waters. Let's go to the next. The first thing we must understand is that life itself is the geometric containment of space, time, light, sound, and elemental energies. To escape the present confines of our third density cellular containment or agreement, we must first decipher how absolute space or pure consciousness condenses to become material forms. Consciousness is Consciousness is perceived and conceived through human psychometrics as nil time, nil space, emanating as a form of energy that is the fundamental soil of all being. Consciousness resonations, and this is very important you understand. The resonations of consciousness fold to become geometrically and mathematically localized or physicalized as a human, animal, or plant, all of which are conscious within the specific um, container that particular life form that is resonating on a particular frequency as a feedback mechanism to the creator. As consciousness becomes a localized physical object, it essentially orchestrates the light encoded reality program within to conform to a reality matrix that has been encoded into the geometric and physical properties of the object it has become. So, a spider, as you will see, a deer, a lion, an elephant, each one of these species are radiating based upon the geometric patterns that formed their bodies and therefore intoned a particular level of consciousness resonance. And that's how we are connected. Thus, consciousness moves from nil space, to become matter, and then it orchestrates the light encoded transmissions of the emanating one, that is God, to produce a physical reality consistent to the encoded genetic properties of perception requisite to the physical object it has become. In other words, it will become conscious in accordance with the particular structure that houses that particular consciousness. Which is why we loved and intoned and looked at all animals as being nothing more than different aspects of the Creator, teaching us from the worst poisonous ones all the way to the benign ones. If that entity is a man, then the genetic triggers that are uniquely human become the tools of consciousness from which he or she psychogeometrically constructs its reality. Let's go to the next, brother. Now, pay attention because this is where it gets a little heavier. Through precise medical formulas, Mahamuni Mahayan was able to recreate the processes that geometrically synthesize pure consciousness or absolute space into material consciousness and incorporated that process into sacred geometric archetypal structures, such as public buildings, temples, and statues, as well as to codify the angular trajectories of divine light and sound into ritual dance, which is why you see some of the um, Ganapati, I forgot the name of the dance that the Hindus do with the eyes and the hands and the different ways that the neck moves and so forth. These are all part of the Mahamudi Mahayan sciences, music and other forms of human consciousness expression. It is within the framework of this ancient science that falls into the category of sacred geometry that we will decipher and eventually recode and redesign the cellular archetypes or architectures of an entirely new and non repetitive, non regressive dimensional consciousness paradigm for an awakening humanity. In other words, what he's saying here is that you will not have to repeat old mistakes once you have reached a level of consciousness that estranges you or extricates you from the realm of karma. Let's go to the next. Please. To understand the true metaphysical meaning of space as time and time as space, we must reconfigure the psychochronometrics or perceptual measurements of time as merely the organized, regimented ticks of a clock, or simply our psychometric perceptions of space as just heights, lengths, depths, and widths. Time, for example, as defined and described by the ancient masters, is a quote, quantified pulse in the movement of beingness within absolute space, end quote. The four elements, or what they call gunas in the ancient Dravidian, of which there are eight, grow from one another because of the fifth element, time. As a result of that movement or pulse against the fabric or membrane of space, the Om, sound, spectrum, light, arises. So time is an element just like fire, air, water, and earth, because without that particular pulse, that is, it is a pulse in the abstract, a pulse within the what we call the etheric realm that maintains the heartbeat, for example. The heartbeat or the pulse of time is what is maintaining the connection between third density and the one most high. The pulse that we feel within us creates the division between this and that, here and there, now and then. And this is the space necessary for the Creator to study itself. It must have these dimensions. It must be able to geometrically recode and decode itself within the avatar that it was given to do that work. And that's who you and I are. Next, please. So, as time and the Om night commingle and flow together within space, Om sound arises. Space, time, Om light, and Om sound commingle, flow together, fold, and condense into form the element air, that is, the octahedron of sacred geometry. These all flow together, commingle, and condense to form fire, the tetrahedron of sacred geometry, and so on. The entire process of becoming is based, oh, sorry about that, is based on the stepping down of frequency pulses that eventually become the geometric domains of for sentient life in various dimensional densities. Next, please. Mahayan saw time, or ka'alam, as a process in which absolute space commingles with itself to create Om light or self awareness, which then commingles with space to manifest Om sound, or what we know as, through this avatar, as perception. And all individual elements, time, space, light, sound, air, fire, water, and earth, mix, unite, and flow together, ultimately manifesting as our material world. Time becomes the source element, represented as hydrogen, which eventually materializes as the psychospiritual sounding board we call thought. So, thought and time essentially are inextricably linked. In fact, thought is the child of time. Thought is time. That's something that, of course, may need for a little bit more, I guess, getting into a deeper realm of preliminary studies in the first and second degrees. Mahayan says, time is the creative source of all objects. It is time that changes into form. It is time that blossoms into the universe, and Ka'alam thus does wonders. Ka'alam being the time itself. Time does wonders. It does wonders. It creates and destroys. It creates, maintains, and destroys. See, time is actually that part of the creator actually getting to see the self where it separates its masculine and feminine, its yin and yang. It separates it by making sure that the connection is shown between the two by the pulse that maintains the balance between the two. So understand that time, the pulse of time, is essentially the reason why we have two hemispheres in the brain, two eyes, two nostrils, two ears, two lungs, two of everything. It's all about Ma'atian balance. Let's go to the next. So now, matter, and this is very, very important to understand how matter is formed geometrically. Matter is a psychometrically formulated, geometrically manifesting illusion. All particles in the universe have smaller particles within them that carry the signature frequencies of divine intention, capable of aligning with the template signatures of human thought for material expression in third density. Spinning triangles and cubes surround each sentient particle like a geometric chrysalis. Every particle in the universe begins by being conscious as itself and seeks the individuated corporeal confines of the holographic human to become conscious of itself. The individuating of the elementals is how the creator gets to know those component parts of itself as it condenses into ever ever more thicker, ever more denser reality time zones. So you can go from infinity or eternity and then begin to contract or condense yourself into ever slower vibrational frequencies until you reach third density. And third density just so happens to be the place where all four of the elements now come together and geometrically, following the pattern of intention, manifests itself. Next, time is encoded within the genetic consciousness and chromosomes of each species as a pulse of perception that matches the pulse of intention expressed by the omniscient Creator's mind. Our chromosomes are locked into the time based vibrational constraints of a third density dark matter hydrogen chrysalis. Time or frequency is the pulsating movement of consciousness through itself, within itself, as itself, by itself, and for itself, vibrating from itself. Sit with that and marinate with that for a moment so you can understand, and understand exactly what it is that we're actually intending. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Just exactly what I was saying, that the pulse of intention is expressed by the omniscient mind seeking itself. Because being all in the all, what else is there to study except the self? Think about that. Next. In the realm of matter, time qualifies the consciousness capacitance of its atomic pulse through DNA, setting the cognitive thresholds of created biological forms. In other words, time to a spider, a fish, a bird, or an amoeba is based on the pulse of perception, qualifying the molecular atomic ingredients that make up their individual forms. Each animated entity organizes time and space within third density through their individual species specific matrix of perception, as elemental and environmental distinctions encompassing height, depth, breadth, width, length, volume, and distance, and shapes their vehicular housing to operate within these geometric perceptual structures. So, a spider sees the world or experiences its own personal reality based upon the spark that expresses itself as its instinctive will to survive. So it has its own consciousness that it will follow. It will spin a web. How does it know how to spin some of the most intricate webs? Because whatever consciousness that is housed within that eight legs, those eight legs of that particular species consciousness, has a particular mission to and to express to do. Each animal on the lower frequencies constitutes a matrix of life that binds all life together based on what it does in that structure that it calls its body. Next, please. Excuse me for a minute. Okay. Now, qualities of matter are differentiations in pulse periodicity. So, in other words, each species has a different pulse of perception. Each species, according to what it expresses as its instincts, are actually expressing the pulse of intention that that species was meant to express in order to maintain the balance of the environment into which that species was then birthed. In biology, geometrical proportions demonstrate that every atom and every molecule is being changed, replaced, or upgraded. Genetic coding is a vehicle of replication and continuity. Continuity equals time. Time equals perception through particle motion. DNA is a helical algorithm. Let me say that again. DNA is a helical algorithm comprising a set of fixed, symmetric, asymmetric geometrical proportions. Next, please. Well, that's it.
That's the last one.
Sorry, I couldn't give you
that
any.
that was, oh man. Woo, that was some advanced stuff there, Doc. Wow, you wasn't playing.
Well, you asked for something advanced
Man.
because you had advanced students, right?
Man, yo, oh man, the people that's watching this, they're gonna be third. We don't get stuff like this on the internet no more. Ain't nothing like this on the internet no more, Doc.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I have the university
Woo.
because I know that they would ban things like this after a while.
Mm-hmm.
I have somebody that I um, that there are people out there that I really love because of the work that they're doing, like
Mm-hmm.
Santos Bonocci. He does some very good work in metaphysics.
Mm-hmm.
He and I recognize one another in the path because he and I travel the same path. So shout out to Santos and the work that you're doing out there. Much love to you, my beloved brother. And let's just keep helping the people to come to the light within them and to understand. Of course, my 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 earlier degrees, the initiate and so forth, is not as complicated because everything you're reading there, which most of the 3 degrees in metaphysics is from my book,
Mm-hmm.
Cosmic Codex. So I took a lot from my book and made it into classes at
Mm-hmm.
different levels. You see.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is to, with your platform, possibly take them right back and let them see in this first one where they would end up once they start taking, if they do decide to join us at our university. This is where they would end up in this particular arena of thought.
Mhm, mhm, definitely. I want to ask you, since we're talking about sacred geometry, what crop circles are? What would you describe crop circles are? Are those messages from the creator source? Can we down? Does our DNA download them by just looking at them, even though we're consciously not aware?
Yeah, the you are a geometric pattern of your own volition. That's why your
Mm,
fingerprints, your DNA, everything is a little different from
mm,
everybody else, even though
mm,
you belong to the structure we call man.
mm,
But the crop circles, to me, are being done in order to awaken certain ancient geometric patterns that you can only look at in order for it to be amplified into consciousness for yourself.
mm,
Like, for instance, when you look at Medu Neter, the reason why our ancestors wrote in Medu Neter and did it in figures and in symbols is
mm,
because we don't, our subconscious mind does not speak in words. It,
mm,
it projects in images, and the conscious mind interprets it as words.
mm,
So when we hear people talking in our dreams, for example, the
mm,
subconscious mind is giving us pictures while the conscious mind is interpreting the words.
mm,
And so we get up saying, "Oh, well, who said that?" And sometimes there is a bridge where the subconscious mind may be so heavily at work that it will bridge with other subconscious minds that are projecting great fear, pain, suffering, and joy also. And that then becomes a kind of interruption or a kind of hacking
mm,
into your particular personal consciousness space. So a lot of people will say, "Well, I had a dream of, my brother or my sister, and they were doing A, B, and a third." Well, they saw them in certain accidents or something. So they tapped into their consciousness time stream to know where their thought patterns are going to lead them into an accident or a circumstance that will give them bodily harm.
mm,
Because we are all tapped into the consciousness time stream. The same way that whales talk to each other
mm,
for miles underwater,
mm,
we are tapped in the same way. A lot of people say, "Well, that's the Akashic records." Well, what are the Akashic records? People can't define it. The Akashic records are water,
mm,
a refined form of water. And
mm.
you saw that in the Japanese, I forgot his name,
Emoto?
Oto,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
He said that water, can emote. You can actually change the molecular value of water simply by speaking certain words based on the intention and what they mean. You can change the molecular value of water. Well, that's exactly what your thoughts, the ancients, and all of the ones who had all that great knowledge, they don't know how to tap into to create another pyramid. I
Mm,
don't care. All of this advancement is nonsense compared to what it is our ancestors did with the
mm,
earth plane, because they're nothing more than a what you call a root race. The European is partially part of a root race that is based on a dying of a particular ultra matter mentality.
mm,
So we're stuck here, and we're not segueing into the spiritual because we're stuck on Jesus, stuck on Allah,
mm,
stuck on Yehuda, and these people are projecting their power into these words and into people who control what these words not only mean, but a lot of people say, well, they're going to destroy themselves because of their evil. Well, the very thing that they call satanic is what we used to be able to use as part of our spiritual sciences. They
mm,
turned it. It's the intention used. In other words, if I have a gun, I can either protect myself or go rob somebody.
mm,
So they have taken the knowledge that has accrued over hundreds of thousands of years. And now, because they can't transcend, and the knowledge they took, stole, pillaged, did
mm,
not come from a basis of deep spiritual knowledge,
mm,
what happens now is they're just creating willy nilly. They're in
mm,
this thing called progress. And now you got, instead of them going into a higher reality, a spiritual reality, they done channeled you into a virtual reality.
mm.
And that's where they want your spiritual energy to go. The more you feed that metaverse, the more you are sidetracking from your own verse, your omniverse, the universe. The metaverse is like a verse. That's what meta means. It means kind of or above the verse, the present nonsense, the present talk, the present bullshit that we've been gotten as words, where the metaverse is their words,
Mm,
their attempt to go in where you are supposed to be able to take your own mind. They're constructing a new prison for your mind. It's
mm,
called the metaverse.
mm.
And your boy Zuckerberg, is the one that's going to be controlling whatever you do. He even said, just imagine, I will know everything you do. I will control everything you do in the metaverse. Why would you want to go in there?
Mm,
I know it's gonna be the money, the lure. Come on in here. You can make a whole lot of money. You could get bags. Come into the metaverse. Why? That's like the Pied Piper. After he got the rats out, right? He came
mm,
back for his money. He said, "You ain't giving my money? I'll just switch flutes." And now he started playing the flutes and took the children.
mm, 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 mm. Earlier, Dr. Valentine, when you was talking about the creative force of the universe, the Ka Allah, is that the same thing we call chi or ki or prana, or it's same thing, just a different name?
It's the breath and the heartbeat of the universe. It's
Okay.
actually intention as it goes through different levels of the water. So, say for instance, you dive into the water.
Mm,
As you're sinking to the bottom, your body now can change. If you die, your body changes and the gases bring you right up to the surface again.
mm,
But you can be buoyant after a certain point, and you got to kind of swim deeper because the water above is pushing against you as you go lower and lower, and you have to fight because the waters below is pushing back at you.
mm,
This is where you are in third density. You are compressed into an environment that allows for all your molecules to stay together.
mm.
Otherwise, they would fly apart.
Right, right, right.
You see? So the Ka'Allah and the Ka'alum, these are essentially forces, frequencies, as is said, vibrations.
Mm,
And they all are one vibration, diversifying into many. And that's what third density does. When you think a thought, it comes out as one spark. Okay, that becomes the atom. But as it hits the medium of third density, it breaks apart into all these small pieces.
mm,
And then the earth, fire, air, and water elementals begin to seek out the intention that matches to them. Is it a water intention, the air intention, the fire intention, or earth intention? And they all come together depending on the percentage of intention that you have. You can have more hate, more love, more anger, more jealousy, and each of those elements will come together in the pattern that you structured by your thoughts. And when they come together, they now become the child that you created, the child of the mind.
mm,
Now they, based upon um, your intention and the amount of force you put into that, the amount of energy you put into that thought structure, they will then guide you to where they want to be born. That thought
mm,
guides you to your ultimate expression. Now, if you have a lot of hate in your heart, I'm talking true hate in your heart, that particular thought begins to manifest as a cancer, and it
mm,
either kills you where you stay and you start, or it leads you to where your death comes to match the quality of the vibration that you keep in your mind.
mm.
Okay.
So when we say we constantly say love is the most powerful force in the universe. Where does intention rank with love being the most powerful force in the universe?
Well, love is just a cohesive energy. We look at it as a kind of separate thing.
Mm,
It's not. Love is the very thing that brings together creation. It isn't something diverse or divested from everything else that you find because you're attracted to somebody or you feel empathy towards somebody who's hungry. That's not love. Everything is love. The interpretation of everything is what becomes evil. And so, if I have an interpretation based upon a prejudice, or if I have grown in a place where my physical body feels it needs to be a certain way in order to survive,
mm,
then that becomes imprinted as a habit or as something that my brain will automatically react in defense of.
mm,
So I have had to go through a lot of changes in the fact that, my distaste and dislike of, the upper echelon that I call the parasitic elite.
mm,
I had to say to them, well, they're there for a purpose, and
mm,
they're going to die out because evil needs a lot of energy in order to sustain itself.
mm. Why? Because it's weak?
No, because it dies out very quickly. The type of force is so contrary to what we call love, which is
Mm,
art. It's so contrary to what is balance that it needs more energy than it would take to stay alive, to be at peace with everything else. But you see, the thing is that encoded within every one of us is the seed of chaos. Because the one thing that the Creator in third density has discovered of itself, which is us discovering this of ourselves, is that the human body, the human flesh, it degenerates if it is not inspired, motivated, or instigated towards doing something else than what it makes itself comfortable with. The more comfort that a society comes, the more degenerate it becomes. The more comfortable a collection of humans become, the more rich they become. Have you seen how corrupt rich and wealthy people are?
mm,
When they have nothing else to do, corruption sets in. You're supposed to be striving towards something inward, not
mm,
out. And
mm,
the illusion has kept us going outward, which is why the metaverse was created, to keep the illusion of you chasing something. And then you're getting all these idiots like, Snoop Dogg and the rest of them selling real estate in the metaverse. And I've seen some of the ridiculous things that they're selling, that they say, it looks like, my 6-year old or 2-year old grandson walked across a piece of paper.
and Drew.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and step it up there, and they say, okay, that's $1 million right there. Good God. You could tell how society actually, how advanced or how deteriorated a society is by its art.
Mm,
And if you look at the art today, it's the splashes of paint and people telling you, look at this, this is $10,000. This is that. That was purposely done, by the way.
mm,
The art world was infected by the parasitic elite by taking away what art was supposed to represent. It was supposed to represent the people. It was supposed to represent everyday life. If you noticed, some of the best art was when people were drawing people in certain circumstances, in
mm,
different expressions. That had to stop because the people were actually being affected by the art world and what the art world gave them back or reflected back to them. You had to look into the eyes of the people that were painted. Look at the circumstance. You see them in the ghetto. You see them in different places. It was humans taking photographs of life with paint and so forth, and presenting them back to people to say, "Hmm, that's deep." But now, what they did was they co-opted that and they began dealing with what they call modern art.
mm,
There was no
mm,
modern art. It was crap. And
mm,
so what they did was they began to deal with the Picassos and these abstracts that they had shit to do with reality. And then they had these assholes in schools to go there and say, well, this is what you say it is. It is a concentric, and this and that. I don't get. They have this one. I forgot this man. It's just got splashes of paint all over,
mm.
and this thing is worth $10 million. I could have stand there with a big canvas and a whole lot of paint from Bears or whatever the name of it, and then sell that
Yeah,
crap.
yeah.
And they'll say, well, we can see that by the stroke of this particular mess. Get out of here. You
Like
got to be really, you got, and of course, the more people in the upper echelon do things, the more people who look to them for guidance follow suit,
mm,
you see. So the elite have done their best to make sure that we don't know what's really going on, but the tide has changed, the time has shifted.
earlier when I was talking to you, you said, and I told you the title. You was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to burst people's bubbles about the creation of the universe."
Yeah.
Just touching on that, the creation of the universe. If this is a computer simulation, did it get hacked or something? What exactly happened? There was a creation of the universe. This what was it wrong to begin with, or did something go wrong throughout the creation? What
No,
exactly
no,
happened?
there was no creation of the universe. There was a continuation of the universe, if you want to call it that. There's no creation. Creation is negation. Creation, the way they intone it, is something outside of yourself. The
Mm,
creator does not create anything outside of itself because there is no outside to that which is nothing more than consciousness.
mm,
There's nothing outside of consciousness. Consciousness simply is.
mm,
So consciousness had to contract upon itself, which is why everything is negation. That's why you feel so much better with negative ions from this flow of water,
mm.
rain. Everything
Mm,
negative is what feeds us.
mm,
The positive is what actually begins to corrode. It's necessary because it initiates,
mm,
it propagates, it causes continuation. But then you have to understand that it's the negation also of that, and which we have not learned yet. We
mm,
haven't learned to pull back and examine what we're creating, examine whatever it is we're looking at to see the ramifications of even proceeding along these lines. They're not, because they're fearful of everything, because they have nothing. They accrue materials in order to make sure that their species template exists. But the European is dying out. What we call white is dying out. The Japanese themselves, who participated in genocide, their particular species complex and and phylogenic consciousness is going to eke out. And you can look right now, go over there to Japan, and they're begging the women to have children.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
because spiritually they participated in genocide, and the same thing is going to happen to the what we call the Nordic Neanderthal. I call it the Neo Neanderthal. Now you have to remember, did a uh, I did a lecture in Brooklyn at St. Francis, where I spoke about who it was that actually began talking about the globe Earth and so forth. So when we fix globe Earth, uh, and we no longer are being hypnotized by that nonsense, then a whole lot changes. The globe Earth mentality feeds into all the other illusions of Jesus the Christ, illusions of Allah, illusions of the three Abrahamic religions. They're the ones that essentially are the three-headed dog of Seppers. They're the ones guarding the gates for the parasitic elite, that religion. They get into your belief system because they destroy your gods. Once they destroy your gods, you have no consciousness of yourself, because it is from your consciousness that the name of God, the idea of God, the perception of God emanates. When they start to push an idea of God into your mind and force you to down your throat, then you no
mm,
longer have your mind. You no
mm,
longer are connecting to the higher parts of yourself.
mm. Indeed. What I want to ask this, Doc, if can we heal ourselves? Because you was talking about art, and art, I guess you could say art, great art is sacred geometry. Can we heal ourselves? Like, let's say I had just images of sacred geometry in my room all over. Does that provide like a healing effect for the body?
Yes, yes. You put up a tetrahedron to ignite a fire in you.
So, because you were saying the fire is the air is the octahedron.
Yes, and
So,
you have an octahedron if you have lung problems, and
mm,
is you can get a nice like a
mm,
you can get like a see this is back when I was practicing radionics,
mm, mm,
when you could do what is known as broadcast healing.
mm,
And we used to use different the dodecahedron, the octahedron, and all the different um, shapes of
mm,
the sacred geometry,
mm,
and beam them through a light, and then beam them on a picture of the
mm,
person that we wanted to heal,
mm,
or at least to help themselves to heal. It's the
mm,
same way with the prism.
mm,
You can also, I used to do what they would call diagnoses. We don't
mm,
call it that because that's a that word has been it has been what is that not published, but it copywritten.
copywritten.
It was
Okay.
copywritten by the medical association, so we can't use it. But to give you an idea of what I mean, you have um, the prism. I could take a light,
Mm,
and usually I like when the sunshine would go. That's what I used to do it when the sunshine used to come in strong through the window,
mm,
and you can get a picture of someone.
mm,
Okay, because the picture does capture the aura and that person's energy.
mm,
And through the prism, under the light, the prism shines down from the white light. It breaks the white light into seven
mm,
colors. Now, with those seven colors shining on that person, whichever color is either diminished or overblown, I know where that person's problem is.
mm,
So, in that way, you can always know what is being insulted. In other words, sometimes we insult a particular chakra, or we insult a particular frequency in the lungs or in one of our organs that
mm,
shows up in the auric field. So, in practicing radionics, as they called it,
mm,
um, I studied from, I forgot his name, Bhaktacharya, I believe his name was. And he was the one who used to use gem healing, that he would broadcast through a particular light onto that person. And there was a man by the name of Wendell Hoffman who took that particular thing. And you notice when I used the pendulum, that's when Queen Afua had introduced me to his pendulum. And
mm,
I do my analysis. As a matter of fact, I created a form of um, analysis called biopsychic analysis using the pendulum.
mm.
And I'm going to do a book. Hopefully, if I can finish most of these seven, which is going to take me the rest of my time to do. But
Mm,
I'm going to do it so that people will learn how to do their own analysis of their own auric field, and how to read the fire, the air, water, and earth in their body. This is the brain
mm,
and lungs, and the heart and so forth. So you can read over a person. I used to. You can ask some of the women when I was in New York at the time. We used to be at the African Street Festival, and back in the time when Afua and I were together, they used to come to our table so I could do a reading on them when they were pregnant and tell them whether they were going to have a boy or girl.
mm,
98% of the time, I got it.
mm. Damn, Doc, throughout your lifetime, you have delved in some major sciences.
Indeed.
Wow, like wow, you got involved in pretty much everything.
Well, a lot of what it is that I've been doing, it comes from you looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, "What else can you do to better
Mm,
yourself and to help humanity?" And
mm.
so that's why I read 3,500 books. I actually took a speed reading course so I can get as much knowledge as I
I,
could.
I heard you say that before. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was brutal because I had to I had to conceptualize myself as not being linear when you read, because your
Mm,
brain is actually, you can look at a page and your brain could do a snapshot of it. And they have people with photographic memories who can do that. But there's training to get to certain words. and stop trying to recognize words linearly. I've stopped that now because I find joy in simply reading slowly something. Because
Mm,
doing this, you get the idea and you know what it is to say, and you can recall. For some reason, the brain recalls what after you've done it dozens and dozens, hundreds of times. The brain can recall the meat and the meaning, even if you can't recall the words. But from that point, I stopped doing that, and because it was dissatisfying. It was like fast food.
mm,
You know what I'm saying?
mm.
Because when you're reading a great book, it becomes a meal for your soul. You're not gobbling up. But I gobbled because I was young and I wanted to know everything at one time.
Mm, mm,
And I studied hypnotherapy, and I used to use that technique on people to uh,
mm,
to help them to get past certain pain, certain addictions, and so forth.
mm,
And I was given an honor with I have some things. I have so many awards hanging on my there. One of this for the Black Psychologists of New York
mm,
was had the privilege of speaking to one of their days. It was beautiful.
mm. What we just talked about the octahedron and that representing I think you said air.
Yeah, the
With
octahedron is air. Yeah,
yeah. What
tetrahedron is fire.
what about Metatron's cube? They say that Metatron's cube contain all the platonic solids and everything within it. So what looking at Metatron's cube, what would that do? Like what does that
Yeah, I don't use Metatron because Metatron is this Jewish.
mm,
You know, I would use it. I would say, yeah, because so many people use it as a reference. But
mm,
Metatron is simply I would call a hologram, and Metatron is a hologram of containment that holds on to records of what is supposed to be the actual programming for a particular consciousness time zone.
mm, mm.
And what I call it is you see, back in the day that was uh, Jehudi's orb, because
Well,
Jehudi was actually one of the first gods. In fact, Jehudi was worshipped long before Amen Ra in Kemet.
mm,
And like I was saying, if you notice in my book, I spoke about the fact that he was the god of everything,
mm.
mathematics,
Yeah, yeah,
geometry,
yeah.
botany, everything. So he was worshipped as that, and therefore all that is contained within the activity of humanity, its potential, its destiny, and so forth, is in Metatron's cube. It's like the point where, okay, where are you going? Okay, you're heading in that direction, then you're going to come up to Metatron's cube, and Metatron's cube will tell you whether you're heading in the right direction or not.
Mm,
You see, and
mm,
you can beam that in order to deal with manifesting your deepest desires and staying on track, because it will also reveal diseases that are based in the organs, which then show you where the diseases of the mind are operating from.
mm.
Because again, matter follows mind, remember?
Indeed, indeed. I want to get to two questions before we get out of here, Doc. Like I said, man, this is just absolutely beautiful. I'm gonna watch this one right after it ends. And when does your the next classes start for your school?
Well, they'll have to call because we have to look at the stars and see.
Mm.
I know that today is what? Today is April. We'll
April the
probably,
8th, I believe.
yeah, most likely, if they can call me at 800-847-1291. Again,
Mm,
800-847-1291. And what I'll do is, I'll let you know, just sign up at www.uksnow.org, uksnow.org, and go there where it says registration, and
mm,
sign up stating that you wish to join Metaphysical Psychology 1. That's
mm,
the entry level course to all the courses for the adults. Okay.
mm,
And we'll probably be starting our summer program in June or July. So they'll have enough time to get their resources together. And we'll definitely send out a notice. But again, thank you for reminding me.
mm,
Um, when you go up on the website, family, there's a link that says contact. Open that link and put in your email and whatever other information like your name and so forth. And then when we send out our views letter with all of our activities, you will get it. Just make sure that you make a constant contact, not only constant contact, but the University of Commission Sciences, whatever it is that comes to you as. Please make sure that you kind of make us a standard. I don't know what that means. My wife says for them to click a certain link that says you're not spam.
Hmm.
And that way you'll be getting all of our information. You'll get to know what we're getting ready to do, and we will let you know the schedule for our next class. But know this: what you got today was a gift that I was giving to my good brother Rich, because he said that you all were ready to hear what it is that we do on a higher level.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of scratched the surface of what we talk about in the perfection level, but you get the idea of where we go. We are molding you to become a teacher
Uh-huh.
of the higher metaphysics, because unless whatever you learn you're not able to convey, then it's just kind of like you grinding your wheels. It doesn't mean you're not doing anything. You're becoming stagnant. You're like a swamp water instead of a flowing river.
Hmm.
So what we do is we teach teachers to teach metaphysics, because it's very hard to get a very high frequency knowledge down to people who are pretty much uh, McDonald's mentality, and you want to get them to come up. You want to get them to understand and understand that there's a higher way and higher value. But the young people are waking up. Trust me, they are coming out of that stupor, and they're very sick and tired of what it is that their schooling and their education system has given to them. So if you are ready, all of our services, the vaccination exemption, our consultations for health, university, our institute for homeschooling our children, all you can reach us at 800-847-1291.
Okay, let's get to two questions. We're gonna get to two questions before we get out of here, family. I thank you for tuning into the first episode of Metaphysical Gems. My brother Dr. Valentine is dropping some high advanced stuff that you're just not gonna get in a lot of places. So I know the people that sign up for this Patreon, y'all more serious than just a lot of people that are on YouTube trolling or just looking for entertainment. The people that's here tonight are people that are seriously looking to become the best version of themselves, and that's what we're talking to the good doctor about. Let's get to this first question. Can you speak on the macabre? The macabre, they call it the vehicle, or that's the
Yeah, well,
yeah.
the Merkaba is exactly what we're talking about. The Merkaba is Metatron's cube, essentially. It's just by another name,
Mm,
and it's stretched out. It's spread out. Um, I can speak about it being the vehicle of light. They call it uh, a chariot. The Merkaba would become the chariot of Ezekiel as well. So is Metatron's cube. I can speak about it, but then it would then go into a whole length that right now we're way past the time I'm supposed to be here. But if you want to know more about the Merkaba, the beauty, and the Kaaba, which is the lesson plan, is just a combination of the beauty of the word of Kabbalah. It's this the whole it's the it's the codification of consciousness to be applied once you understand the methodologies that unlock its secrets. That's the best I can tell you right now without starting to get into all the intricacies of it.
indeed. What's the best way to apply sacred geometry to our lives? How do we learn from it?
Well, once they have pretty good sigils online with the sacred geometry, and there should be people who give you what each of these signals really mean. From the hexagram, the polygons and all the different shapes. They have a very distinct effect on your consciousness, because your aura is an expression of your inner self, your inner vibrational tone or light. And if you shine certain sigils into your eyes or upon your aura, you will see that it can enhance you. And you have to use it carefully, though. Like I said, fire, air, water, you have to be very careful about how you use these particular sigils of those particular elements because you could be overloading your body with an energy that it already is overloaded with. So, study well before you apply any of the things I'm saying. Remember, I've jumped over so much to give you this
Mm,
particular information, and I don't want to get you started on something that you had to have preliminary information before you got to this point. It's very, very, you all are dropping some heavy stuff right here.
mm,
Merkaba, the Metatron, all of these different energies, they have positive, what you call positive energies, which are what I call healing energies, and they have destructive energies. But you have to study, and you have mind have to be. See, the sacred sciences, you can't have a mind, you can't have a McDonald's mind when you tap into the sacred sciences because you'll
mm,
self destruct. First of all, your mind will shut down and you'll fall asleep because it protects itself. The sacred
mm,
knowledge protects itself. Your brain will shut it down because it's not ready. You have to disengage and you have to delete a lot of the programming for you to really be able to intone what the sacred sciences have to offer because it'll just bounce off of you. The words will make you tired. They're there to put you asleep the way that I forgot the name of the sirens when they used to cause the ships to crash on shore. They used to sing a certain song, or when Dorothy and them tried to get to Oz, all right, and they started sprinkling all kinds of snow, which is the drug, and then all of a sudden they fell asleep in the field of poppies. That's what happens to your mind if it is not ready to intone the higher frequencies of knowledge. You have to have. I'm talking for 14 hours is
mm,
because I've trained my brain by reading. Don't just look at pictures. Read
mm,
because when you read, both sides of your brains work. When you're looking at pictures, only one part of your brain works.
mm.
So understand that. Yeah, train your brain just like you want to start lifting weights. Train your brain. Learn to read.
Indeed, indeed. Man, once again, Doc, thank you. This is the first episode in April. I guess we'll see you back here in May. As far as your university, before we get out here, somebody just wants to know, are the classes recorded or do they have to be there live
You're
to
there live. You're there live. But if you can't be there live, and you've paid your tuition for the month, then we will send you the PowerPoint, which you get. You get the PowerPoint and you get the audio. That's part of what you do when you your tuition. You get to keep the classes and go over them. Some students from 10 years ago say they go over their first classes and it's like brand new again.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
knowledge doesn't die, it just ages like fine wine for you.
Indeed. You
Okay.
gave me some stuff to research tonight, Doc. I'm gonna go look into. I'm gonna go. I haven't looked into the platonic solids in a long time, so I'm gonna go and study those. Get my studying into those again, man. But I appreciate everything, Doc, and I guess we'll see you again next month on Metaphysical Gems. Thank you so much, Doc.
Most welcome, brother. Hotel.
Peace, family.